What did we think about that, ladies and gents? Did you enjoy that race? Bit of a slow burner, but the fight at the end, my God, I just wish Mercedes would have let both their drivers race all season long. Love those final 10 laps. Awesome, awesome, awesome. That's exactly what we want to see in Formula 1. Wasn't all there. The beginning was quite good, then the middle part, not the best. A little bit stale, but I'd say a pretty strong Grand Prix, and spoilers ahead. You know, that's pretty self-explanatory in the race title, but hey, people sometimes moan. No moaning today, folks, because it's a day for celebration. Yes, spoilers ahead, you have been warned. See you later if you've not found out the race result. But if you're here now, you're in for the ride. Lewis Hamilton, history was made today. 6 world titles. Blimey, I know I'm not that old, but even when I first saw Hamilton, even being a kid, I don't think any of us expected for him to even get 4 or 5, yet alone 6, and he will march into 2020 hunting down Michael Schumacher's record of 7 world titles. However, he was not the best man on the day. Well, in terms of race result, Valtteri Bottas, Lewis's teammate, was your race winner for the 4th time this season. A bit of a dry patch in the middle of the season, but just like at the beginning, he's coming into his own again now. Won in Japan a couple of races ago, has won again now. His best ever season in Formula 1 is now joint on career wins with Max Verstappen, 7 apiece, and has now secured 2nd in the title. A really strong race today from Valtteri, and I want to talk about him a little bit later on, give him a bit of love, because I don't think many people will give him a lot of love today. Max Verstappen, when I say that, I think the focus will be on Hamilton, is more what I mean. Max Verstappen P3, Charles Leclerc a distant P4, but fastest lap in the end. Alex Alban a really good comeback drive, P5. Daniel Ricciardo, best of the rest, P6, followed by the 2 McLarens. Norris ahead of Sainz this weekend round. Nico Hülkenberg, P9, scoring more points for Renault. And actually, to be fair to Nico, made a pretty awful strategy really pay off today. Strong race from him. And Sergio Perez, pit lane to points. Blimey, cracking job from the Mexican. 2 weekends in a row now. He's put in some star performances. Bottom 10, completely different pictures for a lot of these guys. Kimi Räikkönen made an excellent first lap from P17 up to P11. However, as the race unfolded, it never really materialised into much more than that. Danny Kvyat, who was in the points, a last lap torpedo again from Kvyat. Blimey. Little penalty. End of the race, handed Perez back the points, also put Kvyat behind Kimi Räikkönen. Lance Stroll, he didn't play much part in the Grand Prix. We'll talk about him a little bit later on, but a quiet race from him. P14, Antonio Giovinazzi. P15, and the lead of the 2 Haas cars, Romain Grosjean, on a really difficult day for the Haas team again this weekend. George Russell, P17, our final race finisher, 2 laps behind, and your non-finishers, Kevin Magnussen with a few laps to go, Robert Kubica with a hydraulic issue halfway through the Grand Prix, and Sebastian Vettel with a suspension issue in the early stages of the race. Now, as this is a special weekend, a weekend that we will look back in years' time and say, wow, this is a history was made today. I know a lot of you will like to give Hamilton a bit of stick, but I think today is definitely a day where we've got to sit back and respect the job, respect the Formula 1 legend that is Lewis Hamilton. Securing his 6th world title today. This is the championship standings. I'm doing it a little bit earlier. 381 points. Bottas, who has secured P2, 314. But when you see Sebastian Vettel down in 5th on 230 points, compare that to Hamilton, really just proves the dominance not only of Mercedes but of Lewis Hamilton this year. Okay, the second half's not been as good, but what a cracking job he did in those early stages to wrap it up. And even in this second half, qualifying hasn't quite been there, but in the race, he has been magnificent, especially of late. Other things of note, Sebastian Vettel down to P5, Max Verstappen up to P4, and Charles Leclerc's getting a bit of a buffer over those two now. Alex Alban, well, he's moved up into P6. Carlos Sainz stays P7, but closing down on that 100 points, which for a McLaren driver would be insane when you compare them to where they've been over the last few years. Daniel Ricciardo and Sergio Perez, they swap positions. I can tell you that because I've not changed the colour on the graphic. Apologies. In the Constructors' Championship, we all know Mercedes have wrapped up first, Ferrari have wrapped up second, and Red Bull have wrapped up third. And actually, for the first time in a long time in the Constructors' Championship, we've got a change. Blimey, I've not said that for ages. Toro Rosso and Racing Point flipping round. Blimey. Swapping round is probably a better way of putting it. Racing Point moving up to P6 thanks to Sergio Perez single point down in P10. So Danny Kvyat's late shenanigans not helping him out much of late. McLaren comfortably past 100 points now. We thought maybe they might be able to do it, but 121, yeah, they're definitely sealing up best of the rest. Renault, a really strong weekend from them, especially from Daniel Ricciardo's side of the garage. You would imagine now they've secured P5. Toro Rosso and Racing Point, I think they're going to be 6th and 7th. That's pretty much guaranteed. But I think the biggest guarantee is Williams in last. But at least they've got a point. Right, moving on to the race review. Last time out, I did it a little bit different. I did it through almost backwards team order. So, sorry Williams fans, I started with Williams, ended with Mercedes, and you all quite liked that. So I'm going to follow a similar kind of thing today. So we start with Williams. No surprise there. A tricky race for Williams. I mean, I say that quite often, but more than usual, I would say today. Race pace, as you would expect, from the 2019 Williams car. Robert Kubica for the majority of the race behind George Russell. However, what Williams has been able to, I suppose, be proud of this year is their reliability. And sadly, that was Robert Kubica's Achilles heel this time out. A hydraulic issue halfway through the Grand Prix forced him to retire for only the second time, I believe, in 2019. The other one coming in Russia a few races back now. So Robert Kubica, who will most likely finish his Formula One career at the end of the season, will never finish a US Grand Prix. Yeah, this was his first ever one. Really interesting statistic, that one there. George Russell does what George Russell does in 2019. Beats his teammate, but that's about it. The team in front of Williams, Haas F1, I will go with next. Home Grand Prix, the home heroes, the US power, the muscle, and the grit and determination didn't really help them a fat lot today, to be totally honest with you. Not too bad in the early stages of the Grand Prix. Kevin Magnussen especially, qualified P12. In the early stages of the race, at the end of lap 1, was in the points, in P10, but up in the points, that car just isn't good in the race. It's not good whatsoever. They tried to put Magnussen on a 2-stop, Grosjean on a 1-stop, but it didn't make a fat lot of difference because both of them ended up miles away from the midfield, only just in front of George Russell. And to make matters worse, with 3 laps to go, brake failure for Kevin Magnussen, or at least it looked like that. Came at the end of the straight, that car was just not slowing down, ended up in the gravel, and what was a bad day got even worse. Grosjean, I mean, his result looked a little bit better because Pierre Gasly had to do a cheeky little pit stop at the end of the race, but apart from that, that's a small saving grace in what was a terrible home Grand Prix, is how I'm going to phrase it. Not being particularly nice to my team there, but yeah, a weekend to forget. Moving on to the next team, it's the team this man used to drive for, I suppose. Toro Rosso was looking so good early on in the weekend through practice and qualifying. They seemed to have a car capable to be in the points. Pierre Gasly, who was running a strong race for most of it in the points, went long early in the race on strategy. It might have been Cavia actually, who had a bit of a moment with Grosjean through the S's section. That was a little bit twitchy for us Grosjean fans. Almost made contact, but they were okay. Gasly late on had to make a pit stop. Not too sure why just yet. Sky refused to show, or the race TV directors I should say, refused to show any crashes or incidents that involve the midfield. They only care about the front. So I'm still yet to see the incident on the final lap with Danny Kvyat, but apart from that, it was just one of those races. It wasn't quite coming together for them. Race strategy seemed to be going away from them. The Renaults, the Racing Points and the McLarens seemed to have better race pace. So to come away with no points, I'm sure they're not too surprised, but perhaps a little bit disappointed to lose out a position in the Constructors' Championship, considering where that pace was so early on. Danny Cavia, he went really long. His tyres were just completely falling off the cliff, and a torpedo at the end of the race. We're expecting it now from Danny. So yeah, no points again for him. And considering he was so far up in the championship so early on in the season, since Gasly's come back to the team, I think he's been on the back foot just a little bit. So I think he's going to have to be careful just to keep his nose clean over the next few races. His torpedo reputation is coming back. Singapore, Mexico, now in the USA. So I think he just needs to be a quiet end to the season for Danny Cavia. I have been impressed with him in 2019, so just calm it down a bit, Danny. I think the next team on the list would be Alfa Romeo. Quiet weekend for them, as I mentioned earlier. Kimi Raikkonen, a brilliant lap one. Of course, we shouldn't forget he was our race winner last year here in the US, so has a bit of history with this circuit. It's one he likes, but it just didn't come together for them. And I've said this with Haas, I've said this with Alfa Romeo. I think they've both completely abandoned this year, moving on to next year. So to even be P11, I think it's a strong race from Kimi Raikkonen. Giovinazzi, one of his more quiet races. I've said a few times, I think he's had a much better second half of the year than first half. But today, a quiet race. Next team up, I suppose, will be Racing Point. 1 point for them. Coming from Sergio Perez, the Mexican, almost a home Grand Prix for him. Not quite, but there's no US drivers, so he's pretty close. Same with Lance Stroll, actually. A very North American team is Racing Point, and lots of Canadian owners as well. So it's pretty close. Not quite an American team, but pretty close. Stroll went backwards on the opening lap. You don't see that very often. It's a difficult turn one. We saw the likes of Sebastian Vettel lose out on the first lap for the first time in 2019, so it was an interesting first few laps, but Stroll missed out. Quiet race from him. Held up Cavia for a stage of the race that allowed Perez back through. That was pretty cool, but apart from that, Stroll, not really much to really talk about, to be honest with you. Quiet weekend from him. No points again. On a bit of a drought now. He was picking up the pace a little bit in qualifying. He definitely has, but Perez, from pit lane to point, awesome job once again from the Mexican. Renault, again, quiet day from them, but Ricciardo in those early stages getting the job done. Brilliant fight with Vettel and Norris. The Norris battle going all through the Grand Prix. Loved that. Hulkenberg, a pretty awful strategy, I thought. They put Hulkenberg on, went really long into the race, but it slowly came back to him as the race unfolded. To Hulkenberg, on the quiet, I would like to say kind of a shout for driver of the day, but most of the drivers I'd like to give driver of the day for today. Red Bull, it's actually Ferrari I should probably talk about next. Leclerc, where were Ferrari today? Awful race pace. Leclerc, miles back in P4. Sebastian Vettel, an awful first lap of the race. Supposedly picked up damage on the opening lap. Suspension failure after going a little bit wide on turn 9. All over, no points to him. Now behind Max Verstappen. Max can't be behind Sebastian Vettel. Behind Max Verstappen now in the championship and comfortably behind his teammate. Red Bull do what Red Bull do best. They try and put the pressure on, and I think Verstappen would have had Hamilton in those closing laps. However, because of the double wave yellow at the end of the straight, Verstappen couldn't get past Hamilton. But strong pace, I would say, from Verstappen. Much better than Ferrari, but not as good as the Mercedes. Alex Alban, he had contact with Sainz on the first lap. I'd like to say, definitely a racing incident. No penalties warranted there, so they were pretty quick, the stewards. 100% I agree with that. And Alban, who was on a 3-stop strategy, likewise with Norris, actually. I should probably point that out. Have I missed McLaren? I think I've missed McLaren. Strong race from McLaren. Blimey, that was a little bit silly of me, but strong race from McLaren. Today, Sainz contact with Alban early on, lost out a little bit, worked his way back up. Norris and Ricciardo had an awesome fight all the way through the Grand Prix. Great seeing those two, and great seeing Norris a little bit gutsy on those opening laps. I love that, and his move on Vettel also was brilliant. Back to Red Bull. Alex Alban, who made that contact with Sainz, worked his way back through the race really well. We're getting used to seeing this with Alban, whereas Gasly was a little bit tentative. Is that the word? I think so. And overtaking and working his way back through. Alban gets the job done. Christian Horner heaping the praise on after the race. He's got that seat, hasn't he? And our final team we're talking about today, I spoke about them a little bit earlier on, but we've got to get them all the love we can today. Mercedes, doesn't matter if you hate them. What a team they are. What a job both their drivers are doing. Hamilton, down in P5 yesterday. People weren't necessarily counting him out, but were suggesting that, oh, maybe he's just not with it this weekend. Proving the doubters wrong, held on for dear life. And as I said right at the beginning of the review, if Mercedes would have let the two battle all season long, what a season it would be. Don't get me wrong, that's how they've got to this point, is by making sure their drivers stay in the race, don't give away petty points. That's why they are where they are. However, it was great to see, and Hamilton, you could see, even though he only had to get 4 points to win the championship, he wanted to win. Makes it even more special today, and I've got to give a shout out for Valtteri Bottas today. Even though he was probably a bit disappointed, the fact that Hamilton was there, and he knew he wasn't going to hold on to the title, he still gave it everything, and drove a really strong race as well. The one stop, I think both strategies were probably as good as each other, to be totally honest with you, but Bottas kept on going. We didn't get more frustration from the TV cameras. Why they didn't show us Bottas tripping over Magnussen and Giovinazzi, I don't know. They don't like to show us the interesting things, because at the time we were seeing the back of Toto Wolff's head. So I don't know which one you would prefer to see, but I think I'd rather see our potential race leader getting caught behind back markers. Anyway, we'll leave that for another day. But yes, brilliant job from both Mercedes boys today. And moving into driver of the day, it was so difficult. And whereas some Grand Prix, I really struggled to find even two to put on driver of the day. I mean, I feel like I'm missing out so many drivers on this list. Where's Sergio Perez? Where's Hulkenberg? Where's Bottas? Where's Norris? Where's half the field on this list? But I have given it to Ricciardo, but even then, my mind keeps changing every 2 seconds, so it doesn't really matter this week. I wish I could give it to half the grid. So many of them did such a good job. I've given it to Ricciardo, Alban, Hamilton. I can't decide. I'm sorry. I want to know your thoughts in the comments below. Alban got the official vote, so I wanted to give some love to someone else, but my God, all of them, such a good job today. Mercedes had to be my team of the day. Hamilton's overtake on Vettel, turn 8, audacious, disgusting, loved it. Brilliant move from Lewis, and I don't often give him praise like that. I was pretty happy with that one. A surprise Ferrari. I have no idea where their pace was today. Race rating. I've gone with a 6. Yeah. I don't know. That middle stage of the race to me just wasn't brilliant. And the opening laps, whilst I'd say the first 2 laps were really good, and it was interesting to see Vettel's, I suppose, struggles in the early stages and watching a few of the midfield boys really try and stick it to those top teams. That was pretty nice. A little bit of a change to the norm in Formula 1. But apart from that, the final 10 laps were awesome. Loved it. But I did find myself going on my phone. That's never a good sign. And when I believe I gave Russia a 6 out of 10. I think I enjoyed Russia a little bit more. But I also felt with a championship on the line, with the epic fight at the end, I wanted to give this just that one tick above. And there were some awesome drives as well. I can't deny that. Just, please, TV cameras, let's focus on the racing. They were better today, especially in the early stages. As the race went on a little bit, I felt they just wanted to focus on Hamilton, which I understand. 6 world titles. Cracking job. Deserves all the praise. More praise than he gets, to be totally honest with you. 2 more races to go. I imagine people will probably fade out of Formula 1 just a little bit now as the winter comes in. But it's been an awesome season. I will still be here, posting as normal for the final 2 Grand Prix. So feel free to join me. I believe it's a 2-week gap now until Brazil, so we can have a little bit of a rest. But Formula E is back soon. Formula 1 is ending. Plenty on the channel. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed the race, in actual fact. I hope you enjoyed it more than me. Subscribe if you're new and you've made it this far. I mean, why not? Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.